Time Walk Magic from the same round that we just watched. This one is Andrew Cuneo playing Miracles up against Miquez Hadley on Goblins, Reed?
Wow, this is...
Look at this.
What a treat. Goblins, sort of a blast from the past, a deck that maybe got a little bit of new life breathed into it with the banning of Deathrite Shaman Gataxian Probe, printing of a couple sweet new Goblins. But yeah, I did not predict that we would be seeing it this deep into the tournament. Oh, and I love that he chose Scalding Tarn as his fetch lands, because how many decks in Legacy make the play of Scalding Tarn go? Andrew Cuneo is not going to know what deck he's up against.
Cavernous Souls here for Miquez. Goblins, huh?
So Goblins was the gold standard of Legacy in the very, very early days. Like when I guess when they first created a format and called it Legacy, Goblins was the best deck. One of my very first Grand Prix was won by Goblins, and it was, man, a powerhouse. Like I played a blue-white-red control deck with main deck Pyroclasm and main deck Wrath of God and Blue Elemental Blast and stuff like that, and I still was a heavy underdog against Goblins. The combination of Wasteland and Rishadan Port attacking your lands and the card advantage, the resilient threats with Ether Vial and stuff like Goblin Ringleader. Very, very powerful deck. Its weakness is going to be the non-interactive matchup, since Goblins is actually not that fast for an aggro deck. Usually we're looking at like turn 5 type wins. But it has a lot of really great things going for it, and I think this is going to be a really fascinating matchup to watch, Miracles against Goblins.
Goblin War Marshal. That's my boy. Double the trouble for Miquez Hadley. He's got a little board state going now, but nothing that Andrew's going to be super worried about, at least until later, though that might change depending on what Miquez follows up with. Ooh. Back to basics to shut off Cavernous Souls.
Well, good for two reasons. I mean, first of all, Andrew Cuneo is on the play, and he's effectively just playing Stone Rain on turn 3 on the play, which is always a pretty decent move to make. But also, he's a heavy permission deck. He has Force of Will, he has Counterbalance, so getting to permanently shut off, ignore that Cavern of Souls does have big implications outside of just choking Miquez Hadley on mana.
Yeah, he also can't pay for the Goblin War Marshal's echo cost there, so he has to say goodbye to it, but of course it brings a friend back with it.
That's Skirk Prospector, so a pretty unassuming card, but as a follow-up to a Mog War Marshal, and after Andrew has shut off one of Hadley's lands, that could be a relevant card. Sacrificing Goblins for extra mana could allow him to cast something like Goblin Ringleader, Siege Gang Commander, whatever it might be. And here we see Andrew passing without doing anything, without playing a spell or making a land drop. I see that he does have plenty of spells that he could cast. He might be looking for Snapcaster Brainstorm here, which would be a nice play because it allows him to trade with one of Hadley's creatures.
Certainly considering it, and yes, he's going to play Snapcaster Mage right now. Targeting Brainstorm, go to blocks, take a damage. He can wait and see what Miquez happens to have here before actually casting the Brainstorm. Oop, there's a Wasteland, but that one's not going to untap, though. It doesn't look like it was going to do a whole lot anyway. Goblin Matron for him here.
Boy, I know this feeling, having played a lot of games against Back to Basics in this tournament, where you have to tap a land that you know you're never getting back for, that's Hadley's version of card selection. That's Goblin Matron is his Brainstorm Ponder type of effect. So
Miquez at 11-2 with Goblins, really running it up. And look at this, Andrew's going to respect it enough to say, I'm going to throw a Force of Will at that Matron.
Yeah, part of that is if he sees Hadley willing enough to tap a non-basic land to put that card on the stack, he knows that it's important to him. So Andrew willing to pick a fight over that card.
Oh, and you can see why, too. Jace the Mind Sculptor is the follow-up play. So with only 2 power out, he's just going to go for the Brainstorm.
Yeah, perfect for Andrew navigating to a situation against a weenie creature deck where he actually gets to safely play Jace. Now, he's going to have to worry about a haste creature here, but with only, well, I guess there's more than 2 mana available for Marquez if he's willing to sacrifice his Goblin token. But he could really use a Goblin War Chief here.
Yeah, that thing has haste. Gives haste. Does he have the land? Yeah, but it's another non-basic, this time Rishadan Port.
It's a great play. That's 2 power haste. That's going to allow him to kill the Jace and restock his hand.
Oh,
that's a bingo.
You weren't kidding, Reed. Restock his hand indeed. He got 4 cards. And Jace gone.
Seeing a play like that just makes me feel like everyone else in the tournament is doing it wrong.
No whammies there for Marquez Hadley. And the interesting part, though, is that he is still going to be on 2 mountains.
Yeah, so he can't quickly deploy those cards.
No.
But
perhaps he can use the Prospector in conjunction with some of them to get the other ones out.
That's a good point. What Andrew's going to try to set up is to find a terminus where if Hadley is forced to just play out 1 creature per turn at sorcery speed and Andrew can wipe away several turns' work with a terminus off the top, then he can really get ahead in tempo and set up a situation where maybe he can play another Jace, maybe get some value out of this search for his Kanta that he just cast. Though, back to basics, sort of causing a problem in the long run with that. Nice for Andrew to do this inside combat, or Hadley can't find a way to use the mana.
Boy, that is a lot of non-basic lands for a mono red deck. Goblin Piledriver's a play here.
I actually noticed I spotted a counterbalance in Andrew's hand in the early stages of this game. He elected to brainstorm and shuffle it away, which, not criticizing, I don't know whether that was right given the circumstances, but it would be an interesting card. It would change the dynamics of the game a little bit, particularly because Hadley is stuck in that 1, 2, 3 mana range. However, Goblins are not particularly vulnerable to counterbalance, speaking generally, because its mana curve does stretch from 1 to 5. It has Cavern of Souls.
Key play here. Andrew Cuneo is going to use Snapcaster Mage to at least try to get rid of the Goblin Piledriver, and it looks like he's going to be able to do that. But he also, I think, had his eye on trading off for the Ringleader, and that's not going to happen here.
Nope, that's a cycle of Gem Palm Incinerator, which is a pretty sweet card. That's Goblin's version of Swords to Plowshares or Terminate, whatever you want to look at it as, but that is effectively a cantrip removal spell.
Yeah.
It can kill a creature with toughness less than or equal number of goblins in play.
Yeah, it has cycling for 1 and a red. When you cycle it, you may have it deal X damage to target creature, where X is the number of goblins on the battlefield, so plenty enough to get rid of Snapcaster Mage. But look at this. Andrew has finally taken out that last Goblin for Marquez Hadley, and he now has no board state to speak of.
Still, Andrew needs something to be able to put this away. He's done a nice job stabilizing, but don't forget that Hadley had a 5-for-1 card advantage. He played Goblin Ringleader and put 4 more goblins into his hand. So in the absence of Andrew sticking some kind of important permanent like a Jace or a Monastery Mentor, he needs to do something special to recoup the card advantage in the long run.
And right now he's just content with going 1 for 1. Oh, and look at this. A Jace the Mind Sculptor is exactly the type of card you were just talking about, Reed. The kind of thing that can propel Andrew Cuneo to such a level of card advantage that Marquez won't be able to come back. Right now, though, the shields are down once again, and Jace is sitting there. Only 2 mana available, though, for Hadley. Well, make it 3.
Oh, and that's crucial because Andrew did pick up Force of Will, which he's looking to use to protect Jace.
Oh, he had it all planned out, didn't he, Reed?
Yeah, now Cavern might be able to fight through.
Goblin Piledriver's the play.
Relevant with protection from blue because it can't be bounced by Jace or blocked by Snapcaster Mage.
Yeah, I wonder what the thinking is there. I guess Myquez just wants to try to maintain that Cavern of Souls for a one-shot use as long as possible.
Yeah, or just simply casting a card that's more expensive because he can cast as many 2-mana spells as he wants, but he might only have one chance at something like a 4-mana spell.
Okay.
And here's where we start to see the power of Jace the Mind Sculptor. No matter how many cards Hadley may have in his hand, if Andrew's going to get to repeatedly untap with this Jace the Mind Sculptor, then there's not going to be much that can punish him.
Here's Goblin Matron number 2 for Hadley. And this one's going to resolve.
Now I can tell you, I know a little bit about Andrew's deck because he's my teammate. He might have a little bit more trouble putting the final nails in the coffin compared to some of the other Miracle decks that we've seen on camera this weekend. He does not have Monastery Mentor, but I believe he's got a singleton copy of Entreat the Angels, which is the card that he'll be looking to set up in the long run. Probably would be hard to win via Jace Ultimate against Goblins. There's just too many persistent 1-power creatures, haste guys that are going to knock loyalty off your Planeswalkers. So I think Andrew will just be looking to take the card advantage, card selection route, and eventually find Entreat the Angels.
Myquez got Goblin Lackey with the Matron. That's one way that he can cheat those creatures into play without having to pay full price for the mana. Right now, though, he's deciding if the Matron is going to attack Jace the Mind Sculptor or knock Andrew from 7 down to 6. Ultimately, he decides to attack the Planeswalker. And that must be a Tarfire.
Tarfire, Goblin Tribal, 2 damage to target creature, player, or Planeswalker.
Super shiny. And Andrew's going to hardcast Force of Will. He wants to keep Jace around. That is his current card advantage engine of choice. This does clear the way, though, for Myquez to cast that Goblin Lackey before passing the turn back. Andrew had left back to basics. Oh, what a beautiful little sequence there for Cuneo. Look at that.
Full value off the search for his Kanta.
Yep. Which he is not transforming, by the way.
Yeah, that's because of back to basics. He figures the think tank ability, the card selection, is going to be more powerful in the long run than just a single activation of Azcanta the Sunken Ruin.
It's really working out well for him. Able to put a second copy of Back to Basics in his graveyard and set up the Miracle Terminus to get rid of the board and try to maintain this Jace advantage as long as he can. Ether Vial, well,
about 15 turns too late.
15 late, yeah, I'd say so. There's a Brainstorm from Cuneo.
Still, Andrew will have to respect the Vial in the long run. He has a few turns to set up, but he'll probably try to do something like Snapcaster Mage Council's Judgment to get rid of the Vial.
He's going to go for Predict now to get rid of an island and draw 2 more cards. And the card advantage engine is fully online here for Andrew Cuneo. Council's Judgment to kill the Vial, so he does respect it.
Boy, who would have thought, Marshall, that Back to Basics would be the key card against the mono-red creature deck?
Seriously, it has done serious work for him. And now we've got Jace Plus. And Andrew says, you can keep that one. And boy, if you've ever been on the other side of that, you know that's not where you want to be in Myquez Hadley's seat. Here's another Goblin Matron. He did use Cavern of Souls naming Goblin, so this time no counter spells possible for Cuneo. And can Hadley find another way to start getting these cards out of his hand and getting damage into Cuneo? He went for Lackey last time thinking, okay, if I start connecting with this, I can start putting cards into play, and they kind of chain together. Maybe he'll just do that again.
Standard Grand Prix players, that is time in round 6.
No, he's going for a War Chief.
Proceed to the additional 5 turns. If you have a time extension...
Well, either way, he wants to work towards getting stuff out of his hand on the battlefield, and that could help too.
Once again, Standard Grand Prix players, that is time in the round. If you have not dropped out on your match slip, please come up to the blue stage to drop out at the drop slip right by your scorekeeper. Thank you.
Gideon now on that steady march upwards with Jace the Mind Sculptor up to 6 loyalty. We're going to need to see a land here, though, from Myquez. He's decided to start ignoring Jace.
Makes total sense. If you can deal 6 damage to Jace, it's not that much harder to deal 7 damage to Andrew.
Mm-hmm. No land drop there from Myquez, so he just passes his turn back.
Terminus 1 for 1.
Gets rid of the Matron and keeps this Fate Seal plan going. And once again, he says, sure, you can have that. Oh, it's actually a Cavernous Souls, so that does mean that the War Chief is going to hit the battlefield. But Cuneo knew that, and he was okay with it, so.
Funny if Andrew ever sees a card that he doesn't like with the Jace Fate Seal, he could leave it on top and just predict his opponent.
That's cool.
Yeah, I wonder if we'll ever see a play like that.
Plus, what do you got?
Andrew, by the way, was the legacy seat on his team for the Pro Tour 25th anniversary. He played Blue-White Miracles there as well. That team, it was Andrew Cuneo, John Finkel, and Paul Rietzel. John and Paul, of course, playing the newer formats. And they told me some funny stories where they just were totally not tuned in with Legacy. At one point, Andrew goes, "Oh, can you guys help me remember the Monarch trigger?" And John and Paul go, "We don't know what that is. we have no idea what you're talking about." At another point, Paul looks over and Andrew's got a card that maybe we'll see after sideboard here, Baneslayer Angel. And Paul just goes, "What? You have that card?" Despite being teammates on the same, Pro Tour team, some cards were not known by all players till midway through day 2.
A little siloed off. All right, well, in the meantime, Game 1 has come to a conclusion with Andrew Cuneo winning his game. And that means that we're going to jump forward to game number 2 here in Time Walk. Myquez with the red sleeves, just send the signal early.
Probably would be playing with a red mana symbol playmat if we allowed our feature match players to use their own playmats.
He's crushing with goblins too. Maybe people have slept on goblins a little too long now.
That's one thing that I was just thinking about, Marshall, is I would have to predict that Myquez Hadley has beaten Miracles a handful of times to make it this far in the tournament, and I would also bet that Andrew Cuneo has not faced goblins at all.
Yeah, definitely.
So the experience edge and simply the fact that goblins has made it this far makes me feel like maybe there's something to it in this matchup, especially. On the play, the key card to look for is that turn 1 Ether Vial. Going to make it very hard for the Miracles player to manage the goblins with permission spells. Also pretty sweet to play a deck with 4 Cavern of Souls when Counterbalance and Chalice of the Void are ubiquitous cards that you're going to face a lot over the course of a long Legacy tournament, because Cavern just cuts right through them. Can ignore it.
On a mulligan here. On Hadley's side, Cuneo is kept. Remember Merfolk was a big part of Legacy at some point as well. I remember when I first started watching it 2010
Yeah,
or something.
well pointed out, Marshall. Just like Goblins, that's a deck that I would be curious to see if it can hang again now that Deathrite Shaman is out of the picture.
Maybe me and you should do some 2010 legacy testing, Merfolk versus Goblins.
Yeah.
Okay, big start here for Hadley. He has the Lackey, and that is the kind of card that can give him a massive mana advantage if we're able to attack, though. He predicts that there's going to be a Swords to Plowshares in his near future, and as it turns out, he is exactly correct. So no Lackey. And Cuneo can breathe at least a small sigh of relief. What the? How did that mountain get in there?
I don't know.
I guess they're both unmountains, so he has that going for him. Cuneo probably pretty happy to take a turn off here to cast Search for his Kanta.
Yeah, we talked about it in Game 1 against the Goblin Matrons, the Goblin Ringleaders, the uncounterable effects of Cavernous Souls and Ether Vial. It's sort of on Andrew to do something proactive to get an advantage. So that's why you see cards like Jace the Mind Sculptor and Search for his Kanta still in his deck after sideboarding, even though they don't contribute that much to defending him, protecting his life total. But he does need something because Goblins has so much built-in card advantage. The Miracles deck actually needs a permanent-based engine of card advantage to compete or make sure it can win the long game.
Marquez decided to fight the fight there. He used Pyroblast to take care of the search. Then followed up with a Goblin War Chief, but that got Council's judgmented, so we're back to square zero here, nothing on the table.
Do you start at square zero, or I
Yeah.
usually start at square one?
No, square zero is where we
Okay.
start, yeah. I read a thesis.
Maybe I'm just ahead of the game.
You are definitely that. So now 4 lands on the battlefield for Hadley. What can he do with them? Well, you know what he can do with them. Ringleader. Let's see if he hits
5
this
for
time.
1, 3 for 1. A gentleman's 3 for 1.
Very
Keep it
reasonable,
simple.
Mike West. Thank you. A couple of hits there for him. Passes the turn back. Cuneo using a Misty Rainforest to fetch. What can he get? Would he cast Jace if he could here? Let's find out. Yes, yes he would.
Maybe he'll tick up. No. Maybe he's desperate to set up Terminus. Maybe that's his plan.
This would certainly encourage Mike West to add at least one more creature to the battlefield, preferably with haste.
I see that Andrew has a second copy of Jace, which is why he can be a little bit more liberal with the first one, just in case it dies. Can also tell you that Andrew's well versed in keeping a close eye on the clock. So it could be that game 1 took a long time and he's thinking, if I'm going to lose this one, I want it to be quick and explosive so I have enough time to win game 3. I don't know how much that's factoring into his strategic decisions, but he doesn't want to take a really defensive posture and wind up losing a game that takes too long.
Piledriver was a follow-up there for Mike West before passing the turn back, but the problem is he was not able to get Jace the Mind Sculptor off the battlefield, merely knocking his loyalty down to 1, which means that Andrew gets to untap, get another Brainstorm effect, and get that card advantage and card selection for yet another turn.
Yeah, so good position for Andrew. We know absolutely anytime a Legacy player untaps with Jace that they're in a pretty solid position on the battlefield. It does look to me like Andrew's struggling to find a board sweeper. He has access to both Terminus and Supreme Verdict. Doesn't have either in his hand.
Another Council's Judgment for Cuneo. Let's have a vote. Piledriver's out of here.
But this does mean that Jace is going to bite the dust.
Andrew clearly picked a deck that is not weak to Wasteland. He didn't want to do the thing where he's putting his lands in the graveyard all weekend. And these Wastelands haven't done a whole lot for Mike West outside of tap for mana. Is that a Krenko mob boss there?
It is.
The big boy.
Yeah, that's a very powerful card. More powerful when you have the ability to give it haste off of something like Goblin Chieftain or Goblin War Chief. But, yeah, I think Andrew will be able to manage it if he can just ever find a board sweeper at any point.
Yeah, that is the kind of the key with Krenko, is that Krenko forces you to find a sweeper. Because if you let Myquez untap with Krenko, well, the board is going to get out of hand extremely quickly, at least as far as 1-for-1 removal goes. But a sweeper still handles things just fine. Here's Portent now for Cuneo. I believe he has his Swords to Plowshares in his hand read.
Yeah, he may even have Terminus on top. Portent, of course, being what we call slow trip. You draw a card at the beginning of the next turn's upkeep, which sometimes is a benefit for Miracles. Because
it's his first card drawn. I love that play from Myquez. He figured out that it was going to be Terminus on the top, and he used a wasteland on a fetch land, saying, all right, Andrew, you want to go get a land out of this? You're going to have to shuffle that thing away.
Yeah, that is a smart play.
I like it. And Andrew's like, no, I'm not going to go get a land. Nice play, but I'm still going to Terminus you. Still, if you just snapshot this game, you have to like Andrew Cuneo's stance, right? I mean,
yeah, he's way up on cards. Plus, he's gotten to this late game situation that Miracles just loves. It has so much card selection and, you know, a handful of powerful cards. It can set up big plays like that Terminus one that we just saw, and boom.
Better than all, number 2 hits the battlefield. Plus, take a look, you can keep it. And again, this is just not where you want to be. Life is going to be difficult for Myquez Hadley from here on out, facing down Andrew Cuneo. This is very likely a win and in for top 8 as well, so everything on the line for our players here.
Cuneo having a good stretch of weeks. He's just coming off a top 8, top 4 in Grand Prix Providence. That was standard, where he played blue-black control.
I've kind of been waiting for it.
Yeah.
He plays really well. He tests with you guys. Like, it's always knocking at the door, but I just figure he's due for like a nice run of GP top 8s.
Yeah, last year
he
was a star at the limited Grand Prix, but less success in constructed. This year, he's shaping up to just be strong at both. Very well-rounded player is Andrew Cuneo.
Absolutely. Valued testing team partner for the Ultimate Guard Pro team. You can see he's wearing the hoodie for, well, I was going to say their team, but
my team.
Your team. And this one's really just fallen away here from Myquez Hadley. His run with Goblins looks like it may, at least as far as top 8 goes, come to an end here, though. I mentioned it before when we were talking about you, Reed. You know, Myquez can play in the last round, and if he finishes 12-3, A, that's a super strong finish, but B, it's not impossible. It really isn't impossible to top 8 an 850-player GP with an X-3 record. It's just admittedly very unlikely.
So it looks like in this game it's going to be the Gideon ally of Zendikar that actually deals the 20 points of damage. And we know from old standard, Gideon can do it quickly when it goes unchecked. Andrew got the pincer attack here of attacking both life total and library with Jace ticking up.
Yeah, Jace is now actually going to be above the threshold for ultimate, which is -12. And like you said, Cuneo also has the ability to just win through damage in any case. Is that a Gem Palm Incinerator there for Hadley?
Cycle just for the old-fashioned way of cycling.
Yeah, not where he wants to be. And that is going to do it. Andrew Cuneo wins the match 2-0. And we're probably going to be seeing Andrew in the top 8. You know, these second-to-last rounds are not a lock. Right, sometimes weird matchup things happen, but in most scenarios, he'll be able to sit down across from somebody else, take an intentional draw, shake their hand, and find himself in the top 8. So, again, to give you an update, if you're just coming in, that was Andrew Cuneo winning, probably his winning in here, and going to secure a draw next round, most likely. We'll keep an eye on it for you. This guy has one more round to play, and he still has a lot on the line. If he can win his last round, that will be an X3 record to finish the Grand Prix, which gives you an outside shot at top 8. But really, I'm looking down at this little note I made for myself that says X3 equals a tie. And that's a tie for Player of the Year race with Seth Manfield. So, boy, stressful day for you, buddy.
That would make Brian David Marshall very happy if we finish the weekend with a tie for Player of the Year.
He's not the only one. You know there's a playoff, right?
Yeah, I know that now.
So there's still a few more weeks of Grand Prix, of course, to go. We're going to be taking a short break, though. When we come back, we'll have the last round of Swiss here from Richmond. Don't go anywhere.